You're live.
We're ready.
Let's go. Good morning, everybody. This is a public meeting of the Board of Chiropractic Examiners. The date is October 14th, 2016. The time is 9:40 a.m. The location is the Westin San Diego, 400 West Broadway, Crystal Ballroom, San Diego, California, 92101. The board's paramount responsibility is to protect the health, welfare, and safety of the public through licensure, education, and enforcement of chiropractic care. Please be aware that our meeting is being audio and video recorded, so please silence your cell phones, and we'll now turn to Dr. Julie Elginer to take a roll call.
Dr. Rezzolino?
Present.
Dr. Dane? Dr. Elginer? Present. Dr. Lickman?
Here.
Dr. McLean?
Present.
Dr. Rosa?
Present.
Mr. Rufino?
Present.
6 of the 7 members are present.
Thank you. And Mr. Rufino, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Right hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So as we discussed at our last board meeting, we had just completed the strategic plan the day before. That is underway, and we're also waiting on the completion of several major projects. So not much to report there. I just want to take a moment to publicly acknowledge with a great deal of gratitude that this may be our last meeting for Dr. Elginer. She has met her term limit, and unfortunately, we'll be probably moving on shortly. We hope to keep her in her year grace period. We've asked, requested, begged, and done everything possible to try to keep her around as long as possible. I've served on many boards over the 20 years that I've been in practice, and I can tell you with a high degree of conviction here that Dr. Elginer is one of the most, if not the most, engaged and competent individuals I've ever served with. And I understand we're all here as appointees of the governor for public protection, but it is extremely rare that you find an individual that's so competent and qualified, that has zero vested interest in our profession of chiropractic, that serves so selflessly. It's very, with great pleasure that we see that. It's oftentimes very frustrating that I see somebody from the public be a lot more passionate and dedicated to what we do as chiropractors than many chiropractors themselves. So Julie is going to be a great asset to many people, and she's going to be difficult to replace. So she's sought after in Sacramento. She has been very passionate about consumer protection. She testified with me at a hearing dealing with human trafficking. She's also, with her legislative background, spearheaded our legislative procedure manual, which was one of the first of its kind and excellent. She's also oversaw the board member's administrative manual. Strobe lights going for you.
It's the governor's office. They're calling. Check.
She has to go now. It's fire alarm.
It's the bat phone.
We're gonna ride out the fire for just a couple of minutes here. She's chair of the Government Affairs Committee. She's spent a great deal of time educating myself and other members of the board and staff on just legislative procedures. So we're all very grateful. I think I'm speaking on behalf of the board, but certainly would invite any members of the board that want to express their gratitude here. We're not going anywhere. We are very much appreciative, Julie.
Thank you. It's
And
very nice.
you will be dearly missed, and it's certainly been a great evolution of my career to work with somebody like yourself that's been so skilled and so articulate and organized and passionate. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
So on from there, we're going to move on to the approval of the minutes from the July 29th, 2016 meeting.
Let's see. I think I have some things. I have an amendment to the minutes. On page 7, Under the motion, this is like the bolded area, Dr. Eslino moved to take a support position. The vote was not 7-0, it was 5-1-1, as described in how the people voted.
Any other modifications? Any
Hearing,
discussion? So we'll call for a vote to approve the.
well, we haven't had a motion yet. I'll move, because I just made the,
Okay.
I'll move to approve the minutes from the July 29th meeting with the modification, with the amendment that was identified.
Second.
Any discussion? Public comment? I'll call for a vote.
Dr. Ezzolino,
Yes.
Dr. Dane, Dr. Elginer, yes. Dr. Lichtman,
Yes.
Dr. McLean,
Yes.
Dr. Rosa,
Yes.
Mr. Rufino.
Yes.
You just got promoted.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
So the next minutes are the August 29th, 2016 meeting.
And those were I'll move to approve the minutes from the August 29th meeting.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Public comment? Call for the vote, please.
Dr. Ezzolino,
Yes.
Dr. Elginer, yes. Dr. Lichtman,
Yes.
Dr. McLean,
Yes.
Dr. Rosa,
Yes.
Mr. Rufino.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is Mr. Pulio's executive officer report.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
As usual, I'll be providing my riveting report on
It is riveting.
on administrative matters. We starting off with admin and personnel-related issues. We are currently, I announced at the last meeting that we were in the process of recruiting for our vacant analyst position. That is still in the works. We didn't have a very good candidate pool, and so we've advertised it once again, and we're hoping that we'll be able to find somebody and fill that in the near future. And we're also recently advertised for the vacant office technician position. Hope to have that filled soon as well. And we're also recruiting for a retired annuitant, which would be a seasonal position that wouldn't be part of our permanent staff to help out with the regulations. So we're hoping we can find a retired person who has the background or the skill set to be an asset and help us move those regs along more quickly. So those are the three personnel-related matters that are still pending. Hopefully I'll have good news to report at the next meeting regarding filling those. And that's always the behind the organization chart under tab 5. They have an explanation of all of the board's positions and what the positions are and what their primary responsibilities are. As far as our budget is concerned, it's only been 2 months since the last meeting, so there are no changes to talk about regarding our budget.
Can I just ask one quick
Sure.
line item? Under the expenditures, 8880, the financial information. So for the Budget Act, the current year versus budget year, 12 and 5, is that for Breeze?
I'm sorry, where?
I'm sorry. So under
expenditures?
expenditures, the third one down, expenditures, disbursements, financial information systems for California, the state operations, is that for Breeze?
No, that's just a general, because there's an overarching Department of Technology that oversees all state departments, and so the funding for that department, each Department of Consumer Affairs has to pay, and then it trickles down to all the boards.
Yes, got it. I just was curious if that specific line item was for Breeze or
No,
not.
that's
Okay.
not.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
And then there's also a chart that gives, at the last meeting, the board members had asked for more of a breakdown of our Department of Justice or Attorney General costs. And so this gives for the last fiscal year what our budget was for AG services and what our actual expenditures were. And as you can see, we expended roughly half of our budget. So we I don't know if anybody has any questions about that or wants more specific
Is
information.
this from the Department of Finance? What's the source for this
The
information?
Department of Finance came directly from them.
Okay,
I'm sorry, the Department of
budget.
Justice.
Department of Justice.
Yeah, they provided me with this
Okay.
spreadsheet. So it's pretty basic information. It's difficult to give very detailed information because a lot of the reports they give us have the name of the licensee
Sure.
or disciplining and stuff. So, but this just shows you for like each quarter of the last year how much we spent and how much was remaining in our budget. So. On to licensing. As of September, we have 13,246 licensees. That hasn't significantly changed recently, certainly not since the last board meeting. And we have the typical chart that we provide that gives you all the information regarding licenses and the number issued and number canceled and so on. And then enforcement, we're only about 3 months into the fiscal year, so there's not a lot of data to compare. If you look in the final column, and this is 5D, the compliance unit stats. If you look in the final column, which is the 16-17 fiscal year, since this fiscal year just started, there's not a lot of data here, but we go back for 5 years and show for each fiscal year what the compliance stats were. So we can, as the year goes on, we can watch that final column to see how we're doing as far as number of complaints received and number processed and everything, how we're doing in comparison to prior years. And then we have our usual charts regarding the most common violations and the breakdown. So if anybody has any questions about those. And if not, while we're on this subject, I wanted to ask the board if, because at the last meeting there were a number of questions about some of these items that I provide, and sometimes the board members want more specific information, and I was wondering if we shouldn't establish maybe a two-person committee to, establish a two-person committee to look at the information we provide at board meetings and see if we want to change the spreadsheets and so on that we provide, and whether it captures the information the board members want. Most of these were created, these formats were created before I started working for the board, and the last board decided what they wanted, and that's what's been put in the packets going forward. So if this board decides, well, we don't find that information useful and we'd rather you report on this, that may be something we want to have, establish an executive committee, maybe with the chair and vice chair or something, to work with me to update these. So just a suggestion.
Heather's not here, but I think I know she would be interested in working on that, and I would be also, but I won't. I'll let, if anyone else wants to work on it, I'm happy to have that. But I know that's something that Heather's talked about previously.
Well, I think it would be quite simple because I think we're utilizing everything electronically now, probably prior to this chart being established. So what I think would be beneficial not only for the board but for licensees is just to see a breakdown of these 317 that we see so many violations of, and if we could just have just a little memo. I think it would be helpful just to break it down a little further.
But-
a simple spreadsheet.
But I'll go so far as to say, like, for example, with the compliance unit statistics, I did some calculations going into it. For example, if you look at the percent that closed with merit, so go to your board books on the compliance unit stats. It's one thing to have the numbers, but we don't have the trends. And I think it's the trending component that's more important. Like, for example, if you look at those that closed with merit in 12-13, it was 24.6 if you just do as a percentage of the overall complaints received. Compare that with the 15-16 years, that, you know, the 235 as a percentage of 581 is 40%. So in that, it's gone from closed with merit between 12-13 and 15-16 has gone from 25% to 40%. That type of information is helpful when you are looking at trends specifically. So I think that it is more than just taking a look at this document or these documents. I think it's figuring out how do we show the data in such a way that it's meaningful for us as board members and for the staff specifically.
Yes, and I do believe the more specific we could be for our stakeholders, the better off we're going to be in protecting the public, because I
Right.
think, you know, the trend also needs to focus on what we're seeing.
Right, exactly.
What complaints we're
Exactly.
seeing. And so I think it makes an Excel spreadsheet for something like this to be very helpful.
Okay.
You know, I want to thank you guys for what you're doing in regards to DC newsletter. It's excellent. And I do think that's extremely helpful for people. But I think a simple amendment, as we have here, with a memo on each individual case, I think will be very helpful. It shouldn't be a mystery on to the stakeholders and to the public on what we're commonly seeing.
Yeah, I agree. You know, and that goes out on a quarterly basis. So you would like to see that information on a, well, it would.
No, I don't think we need to see this
I mean,
information
actually, that's only
anymore.
twice a year. So we would be doing that more quarterly because you want that same information?
No, I just think if we break down this graph rather than just referencing 317 as a violation, we have a little memo on each one of these issues. That's something that we could circulate to all the continuing ed providers, or we could have it on our website, just so people have a better idea. Otherwise, you know, unfortunately, you've been asked this question many times.
Yeah.
What specifically do these individual?
Yeah, and then when we do have a legend in there that tells you what, like 317A through Z, whatever, you know, gives a breakdown of what each one of those represents. One of the problems with that is these are complaints received; they're not necessarily
Right.
a discipline taken,
Right.
and oftentimes after investigating, what we find isn't necessarily the same as what was alleged. You know, because we may not find any validity to the allegation, or we may find other violations.
Right.
And in some cases, we don't end up disciplining for
The complaint.
what the complaint was, but we do discipline for something else that we found in the course of the investigation. So it wouldn't be completely accurate, but it'll give you a sense of what people are complaining about.
Yeah, and
Well,
exactly.
Well, if anybody has any opinions, I think we should just establish a 2-person committee and get this done. With
Okay.
this board meeting. Any opinions?
Anybody want to work on it? I'm happy to have someone else work on it, and I'll send you my ideas.
Yeah, I'll with Heather.
Yeah? Okay.
Heather and I.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Can I send you guys some ideas?
Absolutely, and you're going to do that for the next 5 years, right?
Okay, perfect. Before we leave this, Robert, I just want to ask, I'm not sure if we're going to have the discussion on the supplemental materials that were provided to us on the fund condition and the Breeze report, if you want to do it now or when we're talking about the sunset
We
report.
could do that now. I mean, that's part of the sunset report, but if you,
Okay.
it ties in with the budget, so we can
So
certainly
just
discuss
a
those
couple
now.
quick questions. This is the first time I looked at this today. So I just did a quick calculation as to what we've already paid through fiscal year 15-16 for Breeze, of which the board has zero, ability to actually use it. We've already paid $271,000 for Breeze.
Correct.
Okay. I mean, I know that our board is not the only board that, has had to pay for this, that will not be able to utilize it. And I understand also that there's some sensitivity within the department about the fact that Breeze has been ineffective, largely. But I do think that in the sunset report, the actual sunset report, we should specifically call out that number that we have paid.
Do you want to take a moment and just inform the members of the public about Breeze and the sunset report?
I can. Robert might be a better person to do that,
I can give,
but sure.
well, for those of you who aren't familiar with some of these terms, Breeze is a new database licensing and enforcement tracking system that the Department of Consumer Affairs embarked upon on behalf of all of the boards and bureaus under the department. They ran into some problems. They were doing it in 3 releases. We were in release 3. They were able to get the release 1 and 2 boards up and running, but then they ran into some logistical problems with the contract and with the vendor, and they halted any further implementation. So we're kind of in limbo right now, and we're working with the department to address that. So we had already been contributing to funding for the development of Breeze, and now we're in a situation where we don't know what we're going to do going forward and how much that's going to cost us. However, we have been having discussions with the department and with their Office of Information Services personnel, and there's a strong likelihood that we will be able to work into Breeze. So we're giving a little more information than you need at this point, but we're going to be doing a process mapping or process analysis to determine what our needs are, and use that as a guideline for what our IT needs will be. And it's highly possible that Breeze will work for us. If we find that Breeze isn't the appropriate database, then we'll work with the department on finding an alternative. But if in fact it does work for us, then this money that we've already contributed won't have been spent in vain. And if not, then we'll have to, if we have to go with something else and it costs us additional money, then we'll have to go back to the table with the department and discuss what we've already paid and what our ongoing costs or future costs are going to be, and see if we can get some or maybe all of this money back. So.
Okay, thank you. And then the sunset report?
The sunset report is all boards and bureaus under the Department of Consumer Affairs. And for those of you who don't know, Department of Consumer Affairs is the umbrella agency over our board, as well as the medical board, Board of Accountancy, Bureau of Automotive Repair. There's about 40 regulatory programs under the department. So virtually any regulated profession in California is most likely under the Department of Consumer Affairs. So all of the boards, actually except for ours, are subject to sunset, which means that there's a clause in their Practice Act that says that the board will cease to exist on a certain date unless there's legislation to extend that date. Because we were created by initiative, they can't sunset us. But we still voluntarily go through the sunset process, and they evaluate everything. It's a very extensive report, and we have to provide them with a lot of statistical data and answer policy-related questions, and any major issues that are facing the board. We have to provide to them, and what they're doing is evaluating the effectiveness of the program. And for those boards that can be sunset, they evaluate whether they should continue to exist. They've been doing this for probably close to 20 years now, and there have been 1 or 2 very small programs that did get sunset, although regulation of those professions didn't go away. They were just put into a more effective form. So that's what the sunset process is, and we go through that. And it's actually a valuable exercise for us, because it forces us to take a look at ourselves and see if there are areas where we could improve our effectiveness. And sometimes things that are well-intentioned end up going by the wayside. So it's a reminder, oh yeah, we need to get back on track with that particular issue. So.
And that will be coming up next year.
Yeah, will be our sunset report. We've been working on that for the past several months. That's due to the legislature December 1st, and then they'll have a sunset hearing where we will testify before the Sunset Review Committee. And that'll be sometime in the spring of next year. We don't have an exact date yet.
Thank you, Robert. So for the rest of the board, I just want to point out, again, in this, I'm looking at the supplemental material that we received about the expenses for Breeze. So the $271,000 roughly that we paid, that's been over 7 years. The projected is that we still have to pay $338,000 over 3 years. So I point that out because I want to make sure, if I'm not here, someone is monitoring the budget. I mean, I know they're going to be, but I want to highlight that for all of you in terms of the fact that there are still considerable expenses that will be happening over the next 3 years, specifically to Breeze, and that there may be a need to, there will be a need to be cost conscious, given the fact that that's, $110,000 a year just on this potential program that's coming up in the next 3 years.
When are we going to have a definitive answer from the DCA on moving forward?
Well, it's, we have to, I'm going to be working with DCA's Solid Division, which we've worked with for our strategic plan and various other projects. I'm going to be working with them, their backlog right now, but probably starting next month, they're going to start the process mapping process. And then once we've completed that, then we'll meet with OIS again, Office of Information Services, and determine if Breeze will be an appropriate fit. So hopefully by early next year, we'll have a definitive answer.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I don't know how long implementation will take, but we, the first step is the process mapping.
Thank you for the supplemental information. I didn't ask for it, but I love it, so thank you.
Thank you for the insight there.
I think Corey has a question.
What's the 3 times amount more that we're spending through 16, 17? Why is it 3 times the amount from the previous year?
Where's this?
So 2015, 16, 47,000 change. 16, 17, 130,000.
What are you looking at the fund
He's-
commission? Or-
He's looking at this, like just the jump from 47 to 130.
Do I have that?
I think there's two.
I think it starts
Supplemental.
moving towards the,
implementation of it.
Oh, that's,
so again, remember this was budgeted, so I would bet, this is my guess,
Implementation.
this is my guess, is that when this was put together, when this budget was put together, they thought Breeze would be farther along, and that at this point, we'd be closer to the go live, to the implementation. And of course, there's, increased expenses with implementation. My guess, based on what Robert has shared, is that that money will be pushed out to 17, 18, or 18, 19, because they're farther behind on the implementation component. But whether it happens in, 16, 17, 17, 18, the reality is it's going to be a considerable amount of money. So you guys just need to be aware of that and on top of it, and make sure that you're, working with Robert and helping him secure the resources and the timing and everything else necessary to be able to implement it. And if it's not Breeze, then it's going to be something else. So that money is going to have to be spent on an IT system.
yeah, and so we'll be, we'll be having ongoing discussions and negotiations with the department as we determine what our needs are and what the cost is going to be. If we do get rolled into Breeze, we'll have the benefit of learning from the mistakes that occurred with the Release 1 and 2 boards, and they had a lot of hiccups and various things that they've had to deal with during their implementation. So hopefully when we get there, we'll benefit from their lessons, and it'll be a little smoother for us.
Which board is most effectively using Breeze right now?
I don't know which one's most effectively using it. One of the biggest boards that's using Breeze right now is Medical Board. I've heard mixed reviews. I mean, it's like anything else. It's an adjustment, and so some of the people, the staff that are using Breeze, some really like it and they think it's better. Some don't necessarily like it, and it's frustrating and confusing. But overall, I would say the feedback has been positive about Breeze. So it's just it's an ongoing project that they're going to have to fine tune. It was a major undertaking with 40 boards and millions of licensees that are all using the same system, but we all use it. We all have our own area in the database, and we're using it slightly differently. So it was a major undertaking for the department to do this, and it's not surprising that there have been glitches.
Anything further?
No, I have nothing else to report.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the ratification of approved license applications. So if we look at Exhibit 6, we have 2.5 pages of licensees there.
I move to ratify the attached list of approved license applications.
Seconded.
Dr. Rosa.
Dr. Rosa?
Any discussion? Public comment? Call for the vote, please.
Dr. Azzalino?
Yes.
Dr. Elsinore, yes. Dr. Lickman?
Yes.
Dr. McLean?
Yes.
Dr. Rosa?
Yes.
Mr. Rufino?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, sir, I don't know if I can function because the strobe light's not working.
You're allowed to put on your
Point of
sunglasses.
privilege?
Yeah. I was about ready to go crazy.
I thought it was just a purple shirt causing the reflection.
Dr. Rosa, if you promise to put on a white John Travolta suit, we'll get that strobe light going.
I don't think you'd want to see that. It would ruin the women, I'm sure.
Okay, yes.
Next issue is ratification of approved continuing ed providers. We have a list of those. Under Exhibit 7. Need a motion to approve those?
I motion that we approve the list.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Public comment? Yes, go ahead.
Can I ask a question about that?
Absolutely.
What specifically are they approved for CE-wise? So you get to know what's technique or ethics or anything, or is it just general?
This is providers, so it's not necessary. We're not approving the specific courses. This is people who want to be a CE provider, and they could, once they're a provider, they could potentially teach in any area, but they have to have the specific course approved before they teach it. So, this is generic or general.
We are rewriting all of the criteria, so if you'd like to get involved on that, please just keep an eye on the website.
Our licensing and continuing education committee, this has been an ongoing project to look at the continuing education regulations and update them and update the requirements for providers and instructors. And so there's still a lot of work to go on that. So if anybody who wants to participate in that process can check our website to see if there's the next licensing CE meeting, when that'll be. You can also, I always like to take an opportunity to plug our email list. If you go to our website and request to be on our mailing list, you just put in your email, and then you'll start getting notifications whenever we have a meeting, whenever there's a change in the law, anything that we think is important for licensees to know. It's really beneficial to licensees, and unfortunately we have a small percentage of our licensees who actually do that, and they don't often get information that's valuable. So tell all your colleagues.
Dr. Dane.
I'm sorry?
What's the website for the sign?
It's www.chiro.ca.gov. That's correct, isn't it? We haven't checked it. Yeah.
Dr. Heather Dane, who was unfortunately not able to join us today, has done a tremendous amount of work in this capacity. And it is always very helpful to us and most productive if you join those meetings and offer your opinions at the time rather than complaining later. Right, Marcus?
Right. So we need to call for the vote.
Yes. Any other discussion? So call for the vote.
Dr. Azzalino?
Yes.
Dr. Elsinore, yes. Dr. Lickman?
Yes.
Dr. McLean?
Yes.
Dr. Rosa?
Yes.
Mr. Rufino?
Yes.
Next item is ratification of denied license applications in which the applicant did not request a hearing, and we actually have one during the period of July 1 through September 30th, 2016. Staff reviewed and confirmed that one applicant did not meet all the statutory requirements. That's under exhibit.
Val, for some reason, I have something different in my packet. Do you?
Item number 8.
Okay.
Oh, okay, here we go. Oh, I was just looking at no ratification is necessary.
Yeah, no application is necessary.
Okay.
I was getting there.
Yes.
You were saying we have one, and it scared me.
So we need a motion.
No.
No,
No?
there's no ratification. No.
No.
There's no. Exactly. Yep. All right, sunset
Okay,
report.
next issue is the sunset review report.
And this is for those of you who are aren't familiar with the process, this is what I was describing earlier. So this is our actual draft sunset review report. The board members have had an opportunity to review this, and we'll be discussing the responses that we have in here and suggesting any amendments or changes they think are necessary. This will be submitted to the legislature on December 1st. And so I'll turn it over to the board members if anybody wants to. We might want to, just a suggestion, go page by page. So, like just if anybody has anything to report on page 1.
I do. In news that comes to no one, as a surprise to no one, I have a few things. So it says the BC, this is on the first full paragraph, the BCE oversees approximately 13,800 licensees and 19 chiropractic schools. On page 29 of the same document, it says 20 schools.
Yeah, Dr. Dane called me last night and pointed out that same.
Okay, just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
so, and to be honest, and I didn't check this morning, I don't know for sure whether we have 19 or 20, but I'll
Okay.
double check that and make sure it's
I just
consistent.
wanted to. I'm sure she did catch it. Dr. Dane, I'm sure you did. That was my only catch there.
Anything else? Page 1, page 2, page 3.
We've had a lot of meetings, everyone.
Yes.
No wonder we're so busy.
And for those of you that are looking through this in the audience, this is the level of detail that the legislature is looking at. They're looking at all of our board meetings and the board members individually, and whether they attended those meetings. They do. They not only monitor board activities, but they monitor the board members, and whether if they see that board members are missing a lot of meetings, they'll probably ask questions about that. So there is a lot of oversight over what we do.
So any comments on the first, say, 15 pages?
I'm going to go to
I
page
do.
13. Oh, go ahead. No, you go.
On page 11, I had a question regarding some of these meetings that it says I did not attend. One, the July 17th meeting in 2014. And then I am not aware of what specifically the special board meetings were. Those for the executive officers only was.
No, those are special.
Those are usually
20-minute
teleconferences.
meetings. Yeah, well, we just had to take up a matter and take a quick vote.
Yeah, so because we have our 4 scheduled board meetings every year that we'll actually for next year we'll be looking at the schedule at this meeting for next year. But then if we have any other meetings, to like vote on legislation or something in addition to those 4, that would be considered a special meeting.
As we did several weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So I would encourage each board member to look at their own thing, and then if we'll double check, point out if there's one that you think is incorrect, and we'll double check and make sure these are accurate. So
For sure, it's July 17th. I think it's incorrect.
July 17th, 2014. Let's see.
I was there. I don't know why.
It's right here, page 11.
Anything else in regards to attendance?
I have nothing on attendance, but I do have something on page 13. On number 3, since the BCE's last sunset review in 2011, I don't know that date's correct,
No,
is
I think
it?
it was 2013, wasn't it?
Because 2011 was probably the date the report was submitted, but we had the hearing in 2012.
Okay.
So that's probably the confusion.
Okay, I just wanted to.
We can double check that though and make sure. It's, there's a lot of dates in here. So.
Mr. Chair, on page 10, special board meeting that I did not attend.
Which one, Dr. Rosa?
Just go, attend it, go down the line, the only one that says no.
Oh.
Dude, I am there every week. Come on.
That's what I
Hey,
say.
go.
Where's that special board?
I
I
don't
wasn't there.
understand that.
Listen, I'm not the one taking the roll, it's her.
I'm gonna need to have a conference with you, Miss Dr.
Obviously, it's.
I mean, I think that they probably grabbed them from the meeting minutes, you guys.
Yeah, maybe you guys didn't speak.
I
They
don't
didn't
know.
realize you were there.
No.
It was the
They
special
go
board, it was a
through-
special board.
A special board meeting is a teleconference generally. So if we have to take a position on a piece of legislation or
Right.
something like that, and I'm assuming that the process that they went through to put this together was they go through all the minutes and whoever was there or whoever wasn't there.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, we'll double check all the notes and make sure that
If
they're.
that's the case, then I wasn't notified. 'Cause I'm, you know,
yeah, I think just,
okay.
I don't think there's any tremendous concern with either of your attendance.
No.
We'll
Yeah, and
clarify that.
that's one thing,
Well, we
rest
don't want
assured that
things
these
to-
are.
no, I know, it's a
Here
point
that
of
we're
pride more
derelict
than
in our
anything, it's a point of
duties.
I
pride,
don't want to get
right.
on the governor's blacklist.
Right.
Nobody on this board, based on this, even with the no's that you see,
No.
would be considered derelict in their duties. This is very impressive attendance. It's expected that
You should see something.
you can't make every meeting. So,
For the meeting,
but we
yeah.
will double check all of the no's and make sure they're accurate.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Have something on page 18?
I'm sorry, Dr. Dane had some comments on page 17.
Okay.
In the middle of the page, there's a bullet that says how many meetings did board representatives attend, and that paragraph is kind of awkwardly worded. And if you go down to the line beginning continuing education courses offered, we should put a period after offered, and then say interacting with instructors and attendees can provide invaluable insights.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just basically a period and then changing interact to interacting.
And certainly there was additional meetings here that can be listed if we want to.
Yeah, we could, if there's any that any of you participated in that you want us to add to this, we can do that. Just let me know.
I could forward to you.
Okay, and then down to under the next bullet, the third paragraph that says the BCE's board members served on. It should be the BCE's board members served on. We'll delete the. Yeah, just say part 4 test committees. Make committees plural, and we're taking out because there was because. Dr. Dane and Dr. McLean both participated, so we're going to take out that month and just say in 2016, and then just a grammatical thing, and were invited to be part of. We're changing at the end of that sentence. Committee should be plural, and then we're adding because in addition, Dr. Dane served on the Part 4 Question Development Committee, so we'll be adding that in there.
Good.
That's all for
We got something from 18.
I do. This is towards the bottom of the page under results for fiscal year 15-16, the last sentence. So we describe the process by which we do this, the survey. I do think we're going to have to be prepared to address the last sentence. I mean, I know we talk about it, but as a result, the survey indicates that 100% of consumers were dissatisfied with how their complaint were handled. So we just need to have something in there to address that, whether it's through testimony or not, because that's something that's probably going to be highlighted. The other thing that you might want to, I don't know, I'll just leave it at that, that we need to have something to prepare to offset that.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything else?
I just have a question there on that same page regarding the results from 2014-15 versus the results from 2015-16. Is that accurate that in the first sentence under the result for 2014-15, it says consumers initially contacted BCE about their complaint via our website, But in the 15-16, it said that 100% of the consumers initially contacted about their complaint by regular mail. That seems backwards to me.
Well, and this is addressing people who actually completed the survey and what they responded. So, and we have a very low response rate on these surveys, and that's typical for all boards. And so, if we only have a few, and they all say we found out about it through mail or whatever, then that's what the results will be. And so,
couldn't we show this graphically, maybe a little bit better? Like, show the number of complaints. And I'm thinking like a waterfall chart, if you know what that is. But you show the number, it's a bar chart. You show the number of complaints, and then you show the number of people that were sent surveys, which is huge. And then the number of people that actually responded, which was minuscule. And then of that, those that are satisfied, and you map it against those. It's dependent on how their complaint was handled, really. So I almost feel like this could be better explained in a chart where it makes people go, oh, the reason that first of all, we have such low response rates, and then second of all, perhaps the reason that they're not satisfied is because their complaint was closed without
they didn't get the outcome they wanted.
Right, exactly. So I think you can better show that in a chart form rather than in this verbal form, because right now that's lost in here, and I think that showing it this way, it's going to raise concerns, as opposed to if you show it graphically, people will say, I understand.
And the reason why these people were responding is because they weren't satisfied.
Right, they weren't satisfied. Exactly. So,
And that's typically the case. We rarely get, because a lot of times the staff will get verbal comments, oh, thank you so much, and you're really helpful. But
There's no way
usually
to
the
capture
satisfied
that.
people don't complete the surveys.
Right.
It's the dissatisfied people are more motivated to complete the survey.
So
So we'll work on clarifying this.
My suggestion is you could show that in a chart form, not in a verbal form.
Okay.
And I'm happy to help you set that up if you need to. It's just a very easy waterfall chart that if you know how to do it in Excel, it's easy to do.
Okay.
Anybody else, next page or two?
I have something on page 21. Did you do that?
I wanted to explain a little further also.
Well, on number 11, towards the bottom, the history of the general fund loans and how loans were made and everything else. So is the reason that we didn't include the BAR loan because it came from BAR and not the general fund?
Correct. And they're not talking about money that we borrowed from the general fund in the past, and I don't think this has happened in quite some time, but the legislature and prior governors would sometimes look at special funds as a source of revenue to help balance the general fund or the budget, the state's budget. And so they would borrow money from the boards and sometimes not pay it back right away. They ultimately do pay those loans back, but our pot isn't big enough for them to buy it. So I think there may have been in the past, like maybe more than a decade ago, there may have been loans made to the general fund, but not in any of our tenures. So we don't have any outstanding loans.
I have something on the next page, on page 22. If you look at the comparison under expenditures by program component, fiscal year 12-13, 13-14, and so forth, I think it would be helpful to put these in percentage forms. Like, for example, what percentage are you spending on personnel versus on operating expenses year over year? Because right now it looks as though in 12-13, the funds spent on personnel as a percentage were considerably lower than what it is now, and I just want to be able to make sure that you can speak to it. Or, is it going to raise questions, basically? For me, it would say, wait, what has changed in your business that now you are spending that much more on operating expenses or as opposed to personnel? You told me that you're holding personnel constant, but I'm seeing some different things. So all I'm saying is that you might just want to spend some time being prepared to answer these questions. Full disclosure, the people on the Sunset Review may not ask that, but they could.
Yeah, they might. And this is information that they that they request in this format, which is why we provide that. They, a lot of the fluctuation in personnel services is due to changes in employee benefits, and also there's when you hire an employee at the entry level, they get annual increases in their salary to a certain point, and so that can
I think
account
as
for.
long as either I shouldn't say either, translate it into some percentages, and then also have some talking points prepared for it,
Okay.
so that you can, explain it. On page 23, number 16, under staffing issues, it says the BCE continues to, sorry, this is the second paragraph, the very last sentence, the BCE continues to backfill vacancies proactively. I think we do a very good job at that. You might want to, do we know what's the average length of time that our vacancies are open?
No, we don't. We could look into that. Sometimes it seems like we have a perpetual vacancy because we tend to promote from within, which ends up creating another vacancy. But yeah, usually we fill them pretty quickly, given the lengthy process for
I don't think
state recruitment.
bringing that up is, I'm only saying it in terms of if you have that information, great. If not, I don't think it's going to be an issue because it's not. That's not preventing us from becoming or from being an efficient board. But I was just asking in terms of if you had that data, you might want to just put it in there.
Okay.
But if not, don't worry about it.
Anything in the next several pages?
I have it in the enforcement statistics, page 35. Under the investigation, the third one down, so for all investigations, the average days to close, it looks like it's trending up, or it is trending up from 133 to 204 to 173. Again, I think we need to have some talking points if that becomes a question that they offer. Especially since I know this is an area of sensitivity for other boards. They may be looking to make sure that this is not becoming an issue for us. This is why, I'll just take this a moment. This is why it's so important to have trending data, not just hard numbers, but you have to show it differently so that it's actually meaningful. This is precisely why I was mentioning that before. I'm not at all suggesting that we're not meeting our obligations with providing the information that they requested, but they're requesting it in such a way that it's not actionable. You can't actually do something about it unless you look at the trends. So for all of us, if you can take the data and then ask the next step, which is how is this trending and how is it compared to last time, that's what's going to give you insights as to where the sensitivities and the hot buttons are. So that's why trending data is so important. And I'm down off my soapbox now.
Thank you, Lily. We appreciate it.
Come take my class. I'll teach you all about trending.
You can start teaching that remote.
I'm already teaching 3 classes there. I can't do anymore. I have something on page 36. Under the Attorney General cases, the average percentages, they don't add to 100. They add to 159%. So unless this is reporting something that I'm not understanding, I have no idea what those percentages mean. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They add to 159%? Yeah. Now the rounding area, the down below could just be a rounding error, but please, if we could double check that number and make sure it's 100%. Aren't you all gonna miss me when I'm gone? Heather's gonna make sure that she is very detailed also. On page 37, so under 37B, what's the average dollar amount of settlements reported to the board? So we just talked about the threshold for malpractice settlements and the thresholds. These numbers seem like totals to me, not averages, because the settlements that we generally see are, look at all of our stipulated settlements. They're like between $5,000 and $10,000. These seems like totals to me, not averages.
Just gotta change the wording.
These are averages of the settlements from the malpractice issues.
Yes.
With patients. So this is not the fines to the board.
Malpractice settlement.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking.
The courts are required to report to us any settlement involving one of our licensees that's over a certain dollar amount. And so we get notified of those, and then we investigate. If it was a malpractice settlement, we'll investigate to find out if there was negligence or incompetence that we need to address administratively. So that's what this represents.
Okay,
is
as long as-
Settlements of patients.
Right, okay, as long as we're confident in those numbers, great. They just seem very high to me.
We'll double check this.
I think it's, the confusion is that these are malpractice versus
Versus stipulated settlements, okay.
Yeah, and also we don't have a lot of these. Unlike the medical board probably sees a lot more settlements that are reported, and we have had some that were fairly large. So it's.
I think that would be beneficial to include in here. How many actually do you have?
We could, but if they want to know, they'll ask us, because the Sunset staff will go through our report, and then they'll be following up with me and asking questions. So if they want to know, but otherwise we're just providing them with the information that they're requesting. If something seems like an anomaly to them, they'll
I'm
follow
just
up.
saying, we could say this is the average of X number of settlements.
Okay.
Because certainly I think that number is going to be relatively low compared to many other specialties.
You need to say it.
Robert,
Yes.
can we just change the verbiage there and just say amount of malpractice settlements reported to the board?
No, because
That's the question.
this is the Sunset Committee's template, and they ask the question. So
So that's
that's
just-
the question they're asking us,
And that's our,
and that's our response. So yeah, so we're just responding
Response.
directly to the question.
Because if it confused us, then,
Well,
I mean, it didn't confuse us, but
it's their question.
yeah, gotcha. I'm good.
Change their
I'm
question.
good.
If I could change their questions, this would be a completely different report.
Right, exactly.
We just got, yeah.
Let
it's
me
just like-
suggest that
We
they
can change the answer.
Be a lot shorter.
We can answer the question appropriately.
I have something on page 39. So we mentioned in here the fact that the disciplinary guidelines, and that was one of the things from the last Sunset Review. I think we have some language describing, the attempts that have been made to finish it, but I think we're gonna need to be prepared to be able to speak to that.
I think they are aware of this CP, aren't they?
Yes,
I mean, it's not just us.
because the staff for the Sunset Committee is actually the Senate Business and Profession staff from both the Assembly it's the Business and Profession staff from both the Assembly and the Senate, and I've met with them, and we've met with them when we have our November meetings, and this generally comes up. I know Leandra has asked us about the status of CPEI.
She asks us every year.
Yeah, and so I've been keeping her updated, and we do have the regulation is pending. So,
But let's also agree that sometimes in Sunset Review, people take it as an opportunity to, find fault with
Yes.
boards, perhaps unnecessarily. So my point is only, let's make sure we have some talking points to be able to address it. And the fact that we have held I think even just what you just said, Robert, we hold annual meetings with the staff from Senate and Assembly BNP, and we update them on it. And we've shared over the last 2 years what the holdup has been, and we've been in communication with Senate and Assembly BNP staff around it. So they're aware of it, and we are working towards it, you know?
Yes. And and certainly when we prepare to testify, we'll have talking points for anything that may
Right,
be an
exactly.
issue.
And that's,
And likely there won't be any surprises. Generally these issues are raised during the review process when staff is reviewing it, and because then they'll follow up and ask us follow-up questions based on the answers in this report. So we'll be able to respond to issues that that they see concerns with. And but we'll definitely do that.
and that's what I guess as I went through this document, I should have prefaced by saying, when I went through this document, I went into it with the understanding that I wouldn't be here to be able to help with those talking points this time, having testified last time on behalf of the board. So I was identifying and pulling things out in terms of, hey, everyone, you might want to have some talking points around this and prepared to be able to, answer questions if it comes up from this standpoint. So that's it.
Next page. Back to page 42, are you at 48 already? If we look at item number 61, section 8, describe the board's efforts to work with schools to inform potential licensees of the license requirements and license process. I think one of the most notable things is, and should be featured first, is that list the number of meetings that we've had at the different schools.
I think that's a good idea too.
Because I think that's much more powerful than just us individually engaging and speaking to the various schools. And then furthermore, I think we should comment, I saw it somewhere briefly, but I think we should make a much more significant effort in pointing out that we are actually informing all the licensees and the continuing ed providers of all the different infractions that we're dealing with and complaints, and encouraging them to speak about those at their individual meetings, or not only meetings, but continuing ed classes.
I think that's a good idea.
'43, '44, '45, anybody? 48. So in discussion here on page, section 11, new issues. There's quite a bit that we can discuss here in regards to new issues raised by the committees. I think when they're talking about new issues, they're looking at more, I'm trying to think of the word, conflicts or issues that are impacting our ability to effectively regulate the profession, and so we don't really have any issues at this time. We're not dealing with backlogs or. The student athletic pre-participation physical is a good one, a huge one. So I'm glad we're featuring that.
Yeah, and that's something that's a major impact to the profession, and it's something that is interfering with the board's responsibility to determine the scope of practice, and you have other people that are through legislation or lack of legislation defining the scope of practice instead of allowing the board to do it. So that's something that we felt should be raised. But other than that, we don't have any problematic issues.
How about the recent topic that we just discussed regarding jury?
That's new. That ties in with that certainly. So we can add that in here, especially but although I don't know, hopefully that's not an issue because that's just one court that's doing that, and they may be changing their position on that. So we'll monitor that. We could add that in here.
Anybody else have anything?
I just wanted to publicly thank staff for working on this. For everyone, I'm not sure if you have a copy of this. It's a 50-page document. It's an enormous amount of work, and I know that all of our staff have contributed to this. So I want to say thank you first and foremost. And for the public's knowledge, you know, this has tremendous visibility in the legislature because it goes before the legislature and the Senate and the Assembly Business and Professions Committee, and this is what the staff receives and this is what committee members receive as they're evaluating the effectiveness of the board. So it's critically important for your profession, this document, and the actual hearing. If you can't attend in Sacramento, I would suggest you watch the hearing and watch how other boards testify before the Senate and Assembly Business and Professions Committee too. It's very important for the profession. It really is. The other thing I wanted to say is that please understand that as we're calling out specific items to either change, it's not in a critical way. It's, you know, within the guise of many eyes helps make the process better. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear as well. I'm far more detailed than the majority of people are, but I know when I sit at the dais for various appointed positions and elected positions I have, this is the level of detail that I ask when I see something. So I'm trying to help make sure this is as robust as it can be.
And we appreciate that, and that's why we do this, you know, so the whole board can look at this, and if there's anything that's that the board disagrees with or, you know, things need to change. And considering how detail-oriented you are, I'm kind of happy that there were very few.
They're really, no, it looks great. I think it looks great. So thank you again for doing this.
So we have to take a hard stop at 11 a.m. for a call with an attorney, but it's going to close session, but we have 30 minutes here, so let's move along. And thank you once again, staff. So I go with Dr. Howard. You did a great job.
I'm wondering if we shouldn't maybe take this opportunity to take a break, because we don't know how long closed session will go, and this is probably a good place since
So we take
we
a
have
break now.
yeah, because we have
Closed session
13 minutes before 11, so and
Let's do that.
Okay.
Please.
The rest
So
of this
we'll
is
take a
going
break
to
and
be
we'll return at what time?
11.
11, right?
Yeah, it's 10:47 right now. So
Call.
huh?
Call. We have to do.
Yeah, we have to be able to call at 11, so we'll be in closed session maybe for a half hour, you know, and then we'll continue the meeting.
Which means we'll ask you all to leave until about 11:30. When we will reopen the doors. We'll be in closed session during that time.
So, and there's seating out here, so if, you know, there's nothing else you have to take care of, you can just sit out here, and then when we're done with closed session, we'll open the doors again.
I like
Thank
these chairs.
So
No, they're comfy. Don't you find yourself sometimes in these meetings you're like, this isn't
Well, yeah, you might as well. Yeah.
So we are going to go into closed session right now.
Yeah.